fans adore him. Parents despise him.
And this next song is for every priest that said you were going to hell!
Marilyn Manson. The name alone evokes both beauty and terror.
Marilyn Manson is kind of looking at the general public and saying, look what you did. This is what you turned me into. I'm an American Frankenstein.
He wants to push people. He wants people to think and to feel uncomfortable and to feel offended. That's the whole point.
New Jersey saying they don't want Marilyn Manson to perform. Are you crazy?
I've been blamed for more school shootings than anyone in the history of entertainment, and I don't really know how to feel about that.
April 20th, 1999. The Denver suburb of Littleton, Colorado was shattered when teens Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold went on a killing spree at Columbine High School before turning their guns on themselves. A horrified nation watched the massacre play out on television.
The day of the Columbine murders, I was at home watching it on TV. Manson was on tour, and I was on the phone with him.
I was in Chicago in a hotel room with Twiggy, talking, drinking,
And Manson said, oh, I'll probably get blamed for this. Kind of half kidding.
It came on TV, and I remember the first thing it said was 3 gunmen dressed in Marilyn Manson costumes.
And from that point, it just snowballed.
Since the Colorado tragedy, there has been an outpouring of criticism against rock musician Marilyn Manson.
Critics believe there is a connection between Marilyn Manson and the tragedy in Littleton.
Marilyn Manson's music contains what some call a violent message, and what some say is partly to blame for the Columbine High School shooting.
These 2 kids were psychopaths. They just thought, let's go kill without any emotion. How do you blame that on Marilyn Manson?
It was as if I had done something, if I had pulled the trigger myself.
It was Marilyn's fault that they wore long black coats and they had black hair. I mean, come on.
Everything about my message is quite the opposite. I mean, everything I say is opposing the stupidity of violence and media's perpetuation to make violent offenders into folk heroes by putting them on the cover of Time magazine.
Manson was scheduled to appear just a week later in Denver, just miles from the site of the massacre.
And last night, demonstrators protested what could be Manson's last performance for a while.
Under pressure from city officials, the concert promoter canceled the show.
It was a bit much to handle. To turn on CNN and Fox News and hear about Marilyn Manson being accused of influencing kids to shoot up schools.
Being blamed for an atrocity took an emotional toll. Manson personally canceled the 5 remaining tour dates.
It really devastated him to the point where people really thought he was responsible for it.
It freaked me out too. Someone told me I'm the reason why a bunch of kids died.
When something like that happens, it's very hard to deal with, but that comes along with our territory, unfortunately.
He represented a threat to society, and Manson was an effigy during that time period.
Slowly, investigations shed light on the killer's backgrounds.
And here it turned out that they were actually not fans of Manson.
But even this revelation couldn't stop the torrent of criticism directed at him.
After Columbine happened, Manson went into a self-imposed exile. The media response and America's response was exactly the type of behavior that Manson had always indicted to begin with, and he refused to play a part in that.
When he finally returned to Colorado 2 years after Columbine, Manson reached out to some of the victims.
I met one of the survivors, the kid that's in the wheelchair that was shot in the back. Basically, I was really concerned about how he felt towards me if I held some sort of blame in his mind And he didn't really even have any blame towards the people who shot him.
But coming back to the very area where the Columbine killings occurred was a risky move.
I remember being at Mile High Stadium in Denver with numerous death threats.
He had 20 plainclothes police officers as his personal bodyguard that day.
I got calls from everyone in my family. My mother, scared most of all. Everyone told me, do not go on stage. Why would you do it? What do you have to prove?
It was scary seeing the laser pointers coming on stage at Manson, where you never knew if it was something off a real scope.
And I figured, if anyone wants to kill me, it's Mile High Stadium. I'm a sitting target, but I have to do it. If I'm willing to say that I live for my art, I have to be willing to die for it.
Manson would have the last word on the Columbine tragedy. In 2001, director Michael Moore interviewed him for a documentary on gun violence, asking what he would have said to the students at Columbine.
When he talked to Michael Moore, he shut everyone's mouth, and that was the best thing. He's like, you know what, I wouldn't have said anything to these kids. I would have sat down and listened.
Ironically, America's most notorious rock and roll anti-hero came from a town that celebrates all American heroes, Canton, Ohio, home of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. The future Antichrist superstar was born Brian Warner on January 5th, 1969. His mother, Barbara, a former nurse, doted on her only child.
My mother was always very odd when I was growing up. She kept me very close to her.
I think she lived a lot through him, and so she was a little bit obsessive about him.
His mother used to beat the hell out of neighbors for even looking at him crossways.
But Barbara's fierce protection was rooted in the unusual health risk Brian faced as a result of his father Hugh Warner's tour of duty during the Vietnam War.
I was in the Air Commandos. I sprayed Agent Orange.
I've got all that Agent Orange in me, so I had to go to a lot of government testings when I was a kid.
So he was subjected to a lot of children that had deformities and missing legs and arms, and so that was a little traumatic.
Obviously, it hasn't affected me whatsoever.
The test results found Brian suffered no damage from his father's exposure to the toxic chemical. The Warners put the stressful experience behind them. They focused on Brian's education, choosing a private Christian school with a reputation for academic excellence. Little did they know, this experience would turn him into a holy terror. Controversial rocker Marilyn Manson grew up as Brian Warner in the early 70s in small-town Ohio, where he attended Heritage Christian School.
It was a non-denominational private school. Excellent education.
But as he got older, he chafed against what he considered its oppressive environment.
He really liked it until the later years where they started trying to mold the children's minds to a certain form of religion, just scared the bejesus out of him. He was afraid he'd come home and find everybody dead, burnt, and gone to hell.
His first instinct was to rebel.
I was an early dealer in the vices. I sold candy because at Christian school candy was contraband. I started my own comic book. It had some off-color comments in it that I got in trouble for.
He wanted to push the envelope even then.
But the biggest taboo? Heavy metal rock music. The school saw it as a gateway to sex, drugs, and the occult, and urged students to stay away.
So in Heritage Christian School, I was introduced to heavy metal by being told not to listen to it. They would play records backwards, and they would say, whatever you do, don't listen to this.
But Brian was hooked.
He loved Kiss. He loved playing the drums back then. In fact, he had a Kiss drum set. One year we dressed up for Halloween. Brian did all our makeup. I was Paul Stanley. Hugh was Gene Simmons, and Brian was Peter Criss.
But none of the taboos discussed in school could prepare 12-year-old Brian for the discovery he and his cousin Chad made one day in their grandfather's basement.
He had a very dark collection of pornography. I accidentally knocked over this stack of black and white photos, and that's when I became familiar with animal husbandry and the shapes and the goings-abouts of what animals do.
I didn't realize at his age what it did to his psyche.
It redefined our heterosexuality, that's for sure.
That end of sexuality stimulated his brain and his mind to put him down that path that we all want to go and that we don't go.
As he matured, Brian found himself gravitating to another dark art, the world of horror fiction.
I wanted to be a writer. I was very fond of Stephen King and Clive Barker, just drawn to that.
When he started getting involved in the writing class, I really kind of started seeing some real talent start coming with the stories that he wrote.
While Brian tried his hand writing horror short stories in high school, Hugh, who managed a local carpet store, was frustrated with the town's economic downturn. He wanted to leave Ohio for a better life.
This area was completely depleted, and because of the growth in Florida, you go where the money is.
He postponed the move so Brian could finish school. Then the family left the Rust Belt for the booming Sun Belt. But the adjustment proved very difficult for Brian.
I graduated high school. I moved to a new place where I had no friends, and I was probably really on that borderline of could have became an artist or could have maybe become, you know, something like a serial killer.
As an outsider in a new town, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, Brian was adrift. Like many teens, he turned to one of his driving passions, metal music.
All I had was this escape in this world of music.
He put that together with his love of writing. He began reporting for a regional entertainment magazine.
I lied my way to become a senior editor at this magazine called 25th Parallel.
He did bizarre stories about topless donut shop girls and transvestites and major stars when they came into town.
And then when he started really interviewing musicians and bands, I think he got the idea, well, I can do this.
For Brian, it was a revelation. He realized it was he who should be on stage.
I had a lot of writings that I had started to accumulate. And somehow, in the midst of trying to be a writer, I encouraged a club owner to have open mic poetry night, which I pioneered at this club.
He would go there and read his poetry, and you know, he started a cult in that respect.
People responded in a way that was different than they responded to the other people. I don't know if it was what I was saying or in the delivery, but that turned very quickly into starting a band.
But before he ever wrote a single song, he developed his persona.
My reason for choosing Marilyn Manson as a name to represent the way culture combines and ultimately creates folk heroes out of people who are either not famous for talent or famous for crimes.
So you've got this dichotomy of the good of Marilyn Monroe, very famous starlet, and then Charles Manson is one of the most evil guys in modern history, yet the media kind of puts them both on the same level.
It was really an indictment against a society that's doped up and dumbed down by the culture of television.
Something beautiful and something ugly is what Marilyn Manson's all about, and it really describes his personality.
The first time I said it, it was like saying abracadabra. It came out of my mouth in a way that it sounded like a magic word.
Brian Warner was no more.
Once you say you're going into music, most people get pretty nervous. But his parents are one of the few that completely embraced the idea of it and supported him.
It's funny, my wife would say, his name's Manson. Call him Manson. You call him anything but Manson in public, she'd rip your face off.
Brian met musicians who were also devoted to a new wave of harder, more alternative metal music. In 1989, they joined forces and soon after debuted on the local club scene.
I booked the first show for Marilyn Manson as my own manager without ever even having a song written. So at first, I think it was almost a social experiment.
The show was really unique in that the curtain was plastic taped together, and then The reveal was Manson. It was a full spectacle.
The band called itself Marilyn Manson and the Spooky Kids.
Marilyn Manson was based on theatrics and art from the beginning.
I remember that he had the mannequin heads out there.
I think there was a naked girl ironing a swastika flag. There was people in cages.
His father used to come to the shows with a priest's collar on.
They had a show before they had songs. It was just like this art explosion on stage of just chaos and expression.
A buzz began to grow about this outrageous alternative metal band. They became the darlings of the local club scene.
In the early 90s in Florida, there was a music scene. There was a lot of places to play, everywhere from Miami all the way up to, Atlanta.
I was just really shocked to see that he had this many fans already.
He would do these newsletters and handwrite the envelopes out, but I'm saying hundreds, if not thousands, names.
In just 5 years, he transformed himself from a stranger in a new town to the hottest act on the Florida club scene. Hot enough for one of alternative rock's reigning stars to take Manson to the national stage. As a shock rocker for a new generation, Marilyn Manson reached the top 40 pop charts in 1995 with his dark remake of the Eurythmics hit Sweet Dreams. While touring with Korn, Manson developed his next creation, a concept album about a character, long on his mind, a weak, helpless boy who transforms into a superior being. His name, Antichrist Superstar.
I went in the back of the bus. I was playing guitar back there, and I started playing a song from Jesus Christ Superstar. He's like, "What do you know about Jesus Christ Superstar?" He was freaked out because he already had the whole concept of the Antichrist Superstar going on in his head.
He has just everything, all the notebooks that he's ever had since a kid. And you'll see an original notebook with Antichrist Superstar written in it from when he was in 11th grade.
Manson and the band went to record the new album, Antichrist Superstar, at Trent Reznor's recording studio in New Orleans, a process that proved more grueling than they could possibly have anticipated.
And it was chaotic because while Trent is capable of being a good producer, I think he was not capable of being as good of a producer as he could have been because he was working on his own record at the time.
Manson kind of envisioned the album to be almost like a dark pop album, but Trent wanted to flex his abilities as an experimental producer.
It was a very weird experience. Alliances were made, and friendships were made, and enemies were made between all the people making the record. And Manson and I stuck together through all of it.
I think that there was a lot of drugs and a lot of anger and confusion, and it was New Orleans. It was always hot. It was terrible.
Manson fought with Reznor to keep his vision intact, but their mentor and protege relationship would be damaged beyond repair.
It just led to really dark times, and I think maybe that's what had to happen to have the record take place, and I don't regret anything.
It's probably my proudest moment. It's definitely one of my favorite records. That was just a really honest expression of what was going on in that period of our life. I'm glad that it happened that way because it definitely produced a great album.
Upon its release in 1997, the album rocketed into the charts.
When Manson found out that Antichrist Superstar was #3 on Billboard first week it came out, I think it was really kind of, for him, it's a validation of what he had felt making that record.
With a title like Antichrist Superstar, Manson got the public outcry he seemed to want as much as album sales.
For all extents and purposes, he was Satan incarnate to America. You know, he had no other identity. He was just this evil demagogue.
Well, I think Marilyn got what he was going for, to be honest with you. I mean, I think he really wanted to be one of the most controversial artists.
At Sunday services, pews filled with the faithful will fight Marilyn Manson with prayers.
He's out to destroy anything that is good and holy.
They literally believe he's the Antichrist. I even had religious fanatics working for me that wanted to save me because I gave birth to him.
Even in the other religious countries in Europe, Italy and Poland, we always had problems with the government and with protesting.
Far from derailing Antichrist Superstar's success, the protests only seemed to help.
When they got on there and they put the warning stickers on the CDs, I understand why they did it, but it ended up selling more records for the artist.
Antichrist Superstar's first single, The Beautiful People, attacked society's obsession with beauty.
It was combating the fascism of beauty. If you weren't beautiful, you were worthless, you were ugly.
It flipped people out, that's for sure.
It's initially a heavy metal song at heart, you know, because it comes from like old metal riffs that I would like, but mixed with like a swing beat to it.
It really established the sound of the band.
With a platinum-selling album and a string of successful tours, Manson was now part of metal's elite. In spring 1997, he was invited to play Ozfest, the music festival created by Ozzy and Sharon Osbourne. But Ozzy would have to defend his fellow shock rocker when the New Jersey Sports Authority attempted to remove Manson from the bill for what they deemed inappropriate behavior.
New Jersey saying they don't want Marilyn Manson to perform? It's like, are you crazy?
It's only a gig. He's not going to turn the people into frogs in what was he? He's a theatrical guy, you know.
He's a performing artist. It's all theater. It's all make-believe.
The Osbournes refused to cut him from the bill. The New Jersey Sports Authority kept pressing.
As far as New Jersey was concerned, they just felt that he was too satanic.
But for Manson, too much was at stake. His art and his right to free speech. He refused to back down.
I personally sued the state of New Jersey. I won.
So Manson wound up doing the show.
Whether it was the publicity surrounding the incident or not, the 9 Ozfest shows starring Manson turned out to be the most successful for that year's tour. But the notoriety made him more of a target for religious fanatics.
There was a lot of bomb threats, to the point to where you wouldn't even bat a lash when you heard one.
For much of the 90s, rocker Marilyn Manson's name was synonymous with controversy. His champions hailed him as a defender of free speech, not backing down against those who would try to silence him. His detractors viewed him an evil influence.
When you assert yourself as a villain or anti-hero, it kind of comes with the territory to become a target.
It took a lot of theatrical ingenuity for Manson and company to provoke all that outrage.
There's a guy in makeup, in a Nazi hat, on a podium.
With giant flaming crosses.
A chariot with bare-breasted women.
Drywall stilts, a shop light to light himself.
So he's always got a trick up his sleeve that you'll never know.
I started trying to find a way without making it all about theater, still having the energy and the rawness and the recklessness of rock and roll.
On the musical front, Manson also pushed himself and the band to go in different directions. 1998's Mechanical Animals channeled glam rock.
It's hard to pick a favorite Manson record because the best thing about him is when you think you got it figured out, you don't. And you know, that's why I like Mechanical Animals so much, is because no one expected it to go that route after Antichrist. Each album is just a reflection of what we love at the moment, and that changes, you know, often. That's why Manson changed his sound a lot.
But one thing had remained consistent. The music was a product of Team Manson and Ramirez, his writing partner and best friend.
Twiggy Ramirez is a good offshoot to Marilyn. They're Lennon McCartney, Jagger, Richard, and they've always kind of been like two peas in a pod.
But after 8 years together, Twiggy Ramirez felt his persona was now a burden.
Obviously, we loved all the drugs and all the women and all the fame that starts out with. It was like Halloween every day. And eventually, for me, that devoured who I really was. There was a lot of friction between him and Twiggy at the time. I had a beard like I have now, and it made him really crazy. Like, you know, it made him nuts. Like, the first beard was the wedge between us.
In May 2002, the pair stunned the rock world by calling it quits. it was an agonizing split.
Neither one of us knew how to deal with it. It was so much like a marriage between he and I. You know, we lived together, we slept in the same room.
I think we both just wanted out at that particular time. You know, we were just both finished.
But losing Twiggy did not sidetrack Manson from his next major project.
Manson was working on a record called Golden Age of Grotesque that had a lot of elements of old burlesque in it.
The Golden Age of Grotesque tour evoked the symbolism and ethos of 1930s pre-Nazi Weimar Germany. It was really cabaret. It was really vaudeville, like, you know, Moulin Rouge, you know, red carpets, you know, dancing girls with their half their faces ripped off.
Simultaneously, a trendy new burlesque revival was burgeoning at some of the hippest clubs on both sides of the Atlantic. One performer at the forefront, an American model and dancer, Dita Von Teese.
It was my job to go to the newsstand and pick up issues of Legs magazine, where she was featured on the cover of.
And he thought, aside from the fact that she was extremely attractive, that she would be interesting to have in a video for one of the songs he was working on. And I set a meeting up for the two of them.
Immediately, Manson and Dita hit it off.
When they first started dating, and then we went on tour together, she was there the whole time, and he was head over heels with her.
They shared a passion for glamour, a fact not lost on the paparazzi who gave them the Hollywood it couple treatment. They seemed like a match made in heaven. After several years together, the two wed in November 2005. But their separate careers and busy travel schedules strained the marriage.
In the year that he was married, he saw his then wife less in that year than, you know, all previous years combined.
Adding to the separation imposed by their busy careers, media reports hinted that Dita had become disenchanted with Manson's drug and alcohol-laden rock and roll lifestyle.
Dita wanted to change him. And again, you can't change people. You accept people for what they are and don't judge them.
In the middle of a deteriorating marriage, Manson encountered a young actress at a Hollywood gathering.
And I ended up talking to him for about 10 minutes, not knowing who he was. And I went, wait. He said his name was Manson. As in Marilyn Manson. I feel like an idiot.
A friendship blossomed between Manson and 19-year-old Evan Rachel Wood.
I had met her after my marriage had sort of become estranged.
We purely bonded on just having the same love for film and for music.
Already frustrated in her marriage, media reports intimated that Dita did not condone the friendship. In December 2006, Dita filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences.
It just didn't work out. It just couldn't work out. You know, I think Dita thought that Manson would change, but I don't think Manson will ever change. He's Marilyn Manson, you know, and if he's not being Marilyn Manson, then he's not happy. And if he's not happy, you don't want to be with Marilyn Manson.
After the divorce, Manson and Evan's connection evolved from platonic to something more. Inspired by his new relationship, Manson began work on a new song.
When I first had my rendezvous at a hotel with Evan Rachel Wood, she had just turned 19. She was wearing Lolita glasses, heart-shaped glasses.
Obviously because of the traditional Kubrick Lolita poster.
I said, "Don't break my heart or I'll break your heart-shaped glasses."
He turned around and looked at me and then just went, oh my God, I have to write a song about this now.
The incident inspired Heart-Shaped Glasses, the first single from the 2007 album, Eat Me, Drink Me. It quickly reached the top 10. But Manson was about to learn that the drama in his personal life was far from over, and it would send him over the edge, way over the edge.
It started with me cutting myself 158 times with a razor blade.
Having come out of a failed marriage in 2007 and embarking on a new relationship with actress Evan Rachel Wood, rock star Marilyn Manson was not short on inspiration for his music. And then, a random meeting reunited him with a musical soulmate he hadn't seen in 5 years.
I ran into Twiggy by sheer coincidence at the Roosevelt Hotel.
We just sat down and started talking to each other. And like nothing ever happened, like right where we left off.
He said, I noticed that you're not the person that you were, and I believe in you, and it made me cry.
Back then, we would never confront each other on our feelings. We would just like kind of run away from it, you know. But now we can talk to each other about anything.
The same, of course, was true of Manson's other crucial long-term relationship with his always supportive parents.
I wish everyone in this world could have the relationship with their son as I have with mine.
The only thing I think Manson actually cares about financially is taking care of his parents. That's the only thing I've ever heard him concerned about, ever.
But the other key relationship in his life was about to take a hit, and not even his parents or Twiggy could protect the rocker from what was coming next.
We had just hit our 2-year mark. He had asked me, if we wanted to get engaged and we wanted to get married, and I said no. I didn't think it was the right time and I wasn't ready, and there was a lot I still had to do on my own.
And when I broke up with Evan, I spent from Christmas Eve till after New Year's completely alone.
Manson was on his own and taking the breakup badly, very badly.
What started with me cutting myself 158 times with a razor blade all over my face and my hands and my body. It looked like I got in a fight with a raccoon or something.
He literally took out his misery on his living space.
It really looked like a crazy person lived there, and I obviously did.
Manson did manage to deal with the breakup through music. He produced an album reflecting his romantic trials and tribulations.
It's a very painful record. Someone asked me when I walked in the studio towards the end of the record, so how are you feeling today? And I said, well, I'm at the high end of low.
The 2009 release was his highest charting record in years, debuting at number 4.
He's not writing to shock. He's writing more about his own life and more about his feelings now.
But there was another way he worked through his emotions. Over the years, Manson had turned to painting as a way of expressing himself.
I am governed by women that control me. So ultimately, it shows in my art. I paint my obsession with relationships.
Again, the public turned out to see this other side of Manson when his paintings went on display at fine art galleries in Los Angeles and abroad.
He has moved into the real fine art world with his artwork.
We love Marilyn's art. In fact, one of my pictures I've got, it's like the Mad Hatter. Everything with Marilyn is great fantasies, it gets the imagination going, and I love that.
I think it's brilliant. I think it's absolutely awesome. So creepy and weird.
A lot of people always expect my art to be very dark, and I didn't specifically try to be ironic by making it bright, but I'm just very attracted to the color palette that I use, and it's an Alice in Wonderland paint kit.
Yet, despite all this creative fulfillment, what he wanted was Evan.
As much as I tried to get rid of it, I tried to put it out of my head when we were separated. It just haunted me.
We spent a year apart, and I think that year was incredibly important. No matter who I was with, nothing came close, nothing. And I missed him every day.
The two reunited at the end of 2009.
I think maybe she just reluctantly gave in because having me as an ex-boyfriend is worse than being in hell.
They announced their engagement in January 2010.
He asked me if it would be okay to do it on stage, and I kind of declined and said, you know, I'd rather it be more intimate.
Now that he's back with her, I think they're really good for each other.
They're a really good match in that way, is that they're both like little kids. And it's all about, it's about playing in a big sandbox.
They just like have this lust for drama. Life is just like kind of an adventure for both of them, like Bonnie and Clyde.
One passion the two shared was filmmaking. Manson himself had taken several offbeat cameo roles over the years. Now, Manson looks to movies as his next creative challenge.
You know, I want to do things that are comedy, things that are horror, things that I direct, things that I act in, things that I write.
Painting, films, music, he can do it all.
But his core goal remains the same, to provoke audiences as he challenges society's conventions.
I don't think there is anything that anybody doesn't get about Marilyn Manson. Everybody gets Marilyn Manson, they just don't want to. They're afraid to. That's what freaks people out about him.
I can't help but think that Marilyn Manson will be remembered as one of the most controversial rock stars of all time. He not only won a lot of fans, but he definitely enraged and offended a lot of people.
I think we absolutely enjoy the controversy and the attention, and still do. We just like to see what's going to happen and how people are going to react. It's almost like having an art project with an audience.
Every generation has the shock rocker, you know? It's, I suppose, it was Marilyn's turn.
Love him or hate him, it's impossible to remain neutral. A most atypical rock star, he is both sinister and seductive. And even those who detest his music and message cannot deny Marilyn Manson taps into the essence of rock rebellion and rock stardom.
He epitomizes everything that you think about when you think the true rock star. But the thing is, has he reached the ultimate goal as Marilyn Manson? He's had this journey planted in his heart and his brain since he was born. His biggest shot, his biggest surprise, whatever you want to call it, is yet to come still.